Okay, we'll reconvene this regular council meeting of Monday, February 11th. And first we will look for any changes or amendments to the agenda. Any from staff?
None from staff, Your Worship.
It looks like number 15's back. We're looking forward to the Salmon Arm Youth Council presentation today. If I let them speak. It's an inside joke.
That's right, you didn't win.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Any declaration of interest or disclosure of interest on any of the items from council? Seeing none. Motion 5.1, a confirmation of minutes for the regular council meeting of January 28th, 2019.
Moved by Councillor Flynn, seconded by Councillor Lindgren, that the regular council meeting minutes of January 28, 2019 be adopted as circulated.
Any discussions, amendments? Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. 6.1, Development and Planning Services Committee minutes of February 4th, 2019.
Moved by Councillor Lindgren, seconded by Councillor Wallace-Richmond, that the Development and Planning Services Committee meeting minutes of February 4, 2019 be received as information.
Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Carried. 6.2, Social Impact Advisory Committee minutes January 18th, 2019.
Moved by Councillor Wallace-Richmond, seconded by Councillor Flynn, that the Social Impact Advisory Committee meeting minutes of January 18, 2019 be received as information.
Anyone wishing to discuss? No? Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Cultural Master Plan Task Force meeting minutes of January 11th, 2019.
Moved by Councillor Wallace-Richmond, seconded by Councillor Lindgren, that the Cultural Master Plan Task Force meeting minutes of January 11, 2019 be received as information.
Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Takes us into item 7. I don't believe we've had a CSRD meeting since the last one. So we will skip over number 7 into 8.1, Chief Financial Officer, Court of Revision, 2019.
And I have a motion, Your Worship, moved by Councillor Lavery, seconded by Councillor Flynn, that council be appointed as members of the Water and Sewer Frontage Tax, Transportation Parcel Tax, and 73rd Avenue Water Main Extension Parcel Tax Roll Review Panel, and that the Court of Revision be held in the council chambers of City Hall on Monday, March 11, 2019 at 7 p.m.
Okay. Any discussion? Any questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. 8.2, Director of Development Services, the City of Salmon Arm Community Heritage Registry, 450 and 500 2nd Street Northeast. Looking for a motion from the floor here. Moved by Councillor Wallace-Richmond, second by Councillor Lavery. And staff, just to quickly update this, Director of Development Services.
Your Worship, this is an effort by the city's Heritage Commission to include this property at 500 2nd Avenue Northeast and the adjacent property where Fletcher Park is located at 450 2nd Avenue Northeast onto the Heritage Register. And the commission members wrote up a statement of significance as attached in Appendix 2, and it's called an SOS. And the SOS outlines the historical significance of the property. It refers to the previous school building that was on this property here at one time and was used as City Hall right up until about 2005. And there's a process involved, including council's consideration of approval. And if it's approved, then we have to go through a process of advising the provincial heritage branch of the decision.
Okay. Any discussion from council? Oh, here we are. Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. Councillor Cannon is the chair of the commission, but in her absence, I worked on this in my previous work as chair. In addition to the statement of significance, and it'll be added to the Heritage Registrar, there'll also be a very handsome plaque that comes along with it that'll be installed on the property so people can know the story. It is a great story and a significant piece of property. Very little risk to us by accepting this, and I encourage council to support it.
Okay, thanks. Seeing no further comments, so call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Takes us to 8.3, Director of Engineering Public Works. Purchase recommendation for replacement of unit number 74. I've always liked number 74. A regular cab 4x4 complete with hook lift and attachments. Can I get a motion from the table here? Councillor Wallace Richmond, second by Councillor Flynn. Director of Engineering Public Works.
Thank you, Worship. So this is a tender that was out last November. It came back in December, and we reviewed it is for Unit 74, which was a small, essentially light duty or medium duty parks truck, but we're looking at increasing the size of this unit as a hook lift truck. And what a hook truck is that we can apply different boxes to it. And so the intent with this one would be we could, when we're cleaning and mowing parks areas, we can drop off a bin and then pick it up when it's done, rather than driving back and forth down to the parks. And so this tender went out. Metro Motors is the low bid, and it was the amount in the budget was $120,000 in this year's budget. So we're under budget
Okay.
slightly.
And this is an F550.
Yeah, it's a 2.5 ton.
Okay. Councillor Lindgren, question?
Yes, I just wondered if you could clarify, it looks like with taxes, it's 124,880, but we only have 120,000 in the budget. How will we pay the rest?
Your Worship, we get our GST back.
Sorry. Councillor Flynn?
Thank you, Your Worship, and, oh, that hurt.
Feels good.
Sorry. All seriousness, through you to the Director of Engineering and Public Works, I think one of the biggest questions we get from the community is when we don't buy local, and I see that we had a bid from local, but they didn't meet the specs. When it's a closed bid process like this, there's no ability to go back and say, you know, you didn't meet these. We put out very specific specs. There's a very clear process, and if you don't meet specs, we can't go back and say, you know, because you're local, can you try to meet the specs? Is that correct?
That's correct. This is a request for quotations. So when we get it back, we have the ability to ask questions of the low quote, or clarification from any of the quotes we receive.
So not meeting specifications, that's basic to even being considered.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor? Carried. Next up, item 8.4, Director of Engineering Public Works, or no, I'm sorry, that's 8.4. 8.5, Director of Engineering Public Works, Project Award for the Water System SCADA PLC 2019 upgrades.
It is, it's 8.4, Your Worship.
8.4?
Jumped one. You're in such a hurry.
Oh, we're doing another truck. We're buying trucks today. 8.4, Purchase Recommendation Unit number 46, always a favorite. Parks, a 1-ton 4x4 truck with dump box and telescoping crane. Director of Engineering. Motion from the floor for discussion. Councillor Lavery, Councillor Wallace Richmond, and Director of Engineering Public Works.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is Unit 46. This was the unit that suffered an accident last fall. And so we were replacing it. This is our parks utility vehicle. It has the flat deck, and it has the crane on the back so that we can actually pull the large in-ground garbage cans. So we had brought a report to you in January to buy the cab and chassis for this because it was within budget. But now, in order to get the crane and dump box attachment, we're going to be $6,000 over the budget, the allowed budget, and so that's why we're coming back to council for a budget amendment for the $6,000 or $6,500.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about this one? Councillor Lindgren? Oh, I pressed it again, please. There you go.
Thank you. A couple questions. Does the $90,000 that was previously approved not cover the 89? Are we now adding taxes on, which I think I was just told that we get that back? So that's my first question. And the second is, if this vehicle was in an accident, was there an insurance payout?
So in answer to your second question, yes, there was an insurance payout, but obviously it wasn't enough to replace the vehicle because I think we ended up getting about, I can't remember exactly the number, 40,000 or 30, something like that. Anyway, it wasn't sufficient to buy a new vehicle. This answer to your second question, the reason that we're bringing it back to council is because we hadn't approved the budget yet in January, and we needed to order the cabin chassis because there's a wait list, and we wanted to make sure that we can get this in operation before the spring. So the actual amendment is only for the $6,500.
Can I follow up?
Sure.
So is the $40,000 insurance payout being added to the budget to cover some of the cost for this?
Absolutely, yes it is.
Anything further, Councilor Lindgren?
No, thank you.
Perfect. We've got no other speakers. Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Now we're talking 8.5, which is the Director of Engineering and Public Works Project Award for the Water System SCADA PLC 2019 upgrades. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Flynn, seconded by Councillor Wallace Richmond. So, Director of Engineering and Public Works.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is a project that's been on the books for a long time. We've been trying to manage the PLC system, which is part of our SCADA system, which is an automated control system for all of our water system and sewer system. But today we're dealing specifically with the water. And we're looking at doing 4 different facilities and upgrading all the programmable logic controllers for that. And we have been utilizing Interior Instruments for many years, and we feel that by offering a sole source to them, they can do it efficiently because they know our system inside out.
Okay. Any discussions? Councillor Lavery.
Yes, thanks, Your Worship, and I support this. How many, I know it's been part of an incremental upgrade approach. How many other locations roughly?
We have to do all of the reservoirs. I mean, there's probably 45 locations, estimate. So it's big.
We're at the beginning.
Yeah, we are at the beginning right now. So this is going to be an ongoing process for the next few years.
Great, thank you very much.
See no other speakers, we'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. 8.6, Director of Corporate Services, appointment of Animal Control Officer, and the CAO has a motion for this one.
Moved by Councillor Flynn, seconded by Councillor Wallace Richmond, that council appoint Robert Klein as Animal Control Officer effective February 11, 2019.
Okay. Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. This appointment will permit Bob Klein to write municipal tickets and enforce the animal and pound bylaw for the city.
Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, and through you to Director of Corporate Services. So Mr. Klein is a commissioner, and is he also going to be the CSRD bylaw enforcement officer for this for their bylaws where they apply?
Through your worship, yes. Bob is also going to serve the CSRD, and he is employed by the commissioners.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to thank staff, CSRD staff, and everybody for working together to find us a solution that is viable for the community in the absence of any competitive bids to take on animal control. And I think the solution that we've all come up with as a team, working with the City of Enderby as well, is one that will benefit the taxpayers. So thank you for all your efforts.
Okay. See no other speakers, call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. So it takes us to item 9.1, City of Salmon Municipal Ticket Information Utilization Amendment bylaw number 4304, Pound and Animal Control, first, second, and third readings. A motion from the floor. Councillor Flynn, Councillor Wallace Richmond, thanks for stepping in there. CAO? Do we need anything further in this? No? I'll call the question on 9.1. All those in favor? Carried. 9.2, City of Salmon Fee for Service Amendment Bylaw 4303, Pound and Animal Control, first, second, and third readings. You can see 9.1 for the staff report. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Move, Councillor Lavery. Second, Councillor Wallace Richmond. Any discussions about this one? Okay. Okay, call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay. 9.3, the City of Salmon Arm Zoning Amendment Bylaw 4306. Zone 1136 Lawson Engineering and Development Services Limited, Lawson B, Hillcrest Muse, Inc., 2510 Avenue Southeast, from R1 to CD19, first and second readings. Can I get a motion from the floor? Moved by Councillor Lavery, seconded by Councillor Flynn. Thank you for getting that on the floor. Director of Development and Services.
Your Worship, this is a rezoning application for a property located at 2520 10th Avenue Southeast. The owner is Hillcrest Muse Incorporated. The applicant is Lawson Engineering and Development Services. And the property is 1 hectare in size, 2.5 acres. If rezoned to CD19, a site-specific zone, that would enable subdivision of between 20 to 22 lots. And with the possibility of duplexes as well. And the zone is site-specific, as mentioned. It resembles another CD zone for the Maplewood subdivision off Okanagan. It also resembles the R4 medium-density residential zone, and it resembles the R1 zone. So it's tailor-made. And one thing we didn't really discuss last week at the Planning Committee meeting are two aspects of the zone which makes it quite unique. One is the requirement for a buffer along the entire west property line, and that buffer being a 6.5 foot high fence, solid fence, and some landscaping. So that's built right into the zone for that requirement. And the other major difference with this zone compared to the other residential zones I mentioned is the rear yard setback would be a minimum of 3 meters, whereas the other zones mentioned have a rear setback of 5 meters or 6 meters. Other than that, the density is not well within, it's pretty much up to the maximum allowed in the low density category of the community plan for that area, but it does meet the low density policies of the OCP.
Okay, thanks. Invite the applicant to present to council if they wish, stating your name and address for recording secretary.
Thank you, Your Worship. My name is Alistair Waters of 3190 30th Avenue Northeast. I'm the applicant and the agent on behalf of Hillcrest Muse Incorporated. If you have any questions, you can direct them towards me. Just to reiterate also what Kevin has presented, the purpose of the developers is to seek rezoning to allow for a bare land strata. Obviously, we can still, within the bylaw and the OCP designation, accommodate with the exact same density with a conventional strata, but from a perspective of marketability and also for the potential owners, we see that it is far greater used and utilized of the space to seek a bare land strata.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? So thank you very much, and you have a seat, and we'll call you back up if we need anything. Does anyone have any questions for staff? Councillor Lindgren?
Thank you. I have a problem with the whole $400,000 being considered affordable housing, and that's not a reflection on the developer, just a comment on our market. But I wondered if in this CD19, I wasn't sure if secondary suites would be allowed and as a method of making these more affordable for people to live in.
I'll direct that to the Director of Engineering and Development, or Director of Development Services.
Your Worship, I'll just double check on that. But I don't think secondary suites are permitted in this zone. But I just want to be sure. No, they're not included.
Thank you. Any further questions for staff or the applicant? Councillor Flynn?
Thank you. Just through you, process-wise, if we approve this, there will be a public hearing next Monday for the rezoning, is that correct?
2 Mondays.
Tuesday? Oh, no.
No, 2 weeks.
2 weeks, sorry.
The regular council meeting.
Okay, sorry, what am I thinking? I missed a planning meeting and now I'm thinking I'm at a planning meeting.
Thinking you're in Palm
Okay,
Springs.
thank you.
Bet. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Perfect. The, takes us to 9.4, City of Salmon Arm zoning amendment bylaw 4307, zone 1138. M. Simpson from 2150 21st Street, rezoning application from R1 to R8. Can I get a motion, mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Wallace Richmond.
No.
Councillor Flynn, thank you very much. Director of Development Services.
Your worship, does the motion have to be read out, or?
No.
Okay. This is a rezoning application for 2150 21st Street Northeast. The applicant is Mike Simpson, and there's an existing house on the property. And renovations are underway to convert the basement level into a secondary suite. The land is designated low-density residential, and the policies for that designation supports R8 zoning and a secondary suite on this property.
And I don't see the applicant here today. Any questions for staff from council? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Oh, Councillor, oh, sorry.
You didn't turn mine off, so I just turned it off.
Oh, okay, sorry. That's carried. Okay, excellent. So this takes us to 9.5, the City of Salmon Arm zoning amendment bylaw 4308 for zone 1139 S Green, 1461 17th Street Southeast. They are going to zone from R8 or R7 to R8 and R1. So first and second readings. Can I get a motion from the floor? Councillor Lindgren, Councillor Wallace Richmond, Director of Development Services, to walk us through this.
Your worship, this property is located in the Hillcrest area. It is presently zoned R7, which is large lot residential. The minimum lot size of R7 is 1/3 of an acre, and that's how big the property is now. There's an application to subdivide the property into 2 lots, Lot 1 and Lot 2. And Lot 1 is proposed to be rezoned to R1, and proposed Lot 2, the northern portion, is proposed to be rezoned to R8, secondary suite zone. And the owner does not want to rezone the house property to R8, but he wants to rezone the northern portion to R8. And he explained his rationale for that last Monday.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? Any comments? Call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay. The 9.7, which is the City of Salmon Arm zoning amendment by, or 9.6, I'm sorry. I just crossed my, okay. 9.6, City of Salmon Arm zoning amendment bylaw 4309, zone 1140. Terry and Carrie Tarno, Canoe Beach Properties, 0753219 BC Limited. The properties are located at 4400 and 4600 Canoe Beach Drive Northeast. The applicant is looking to rezone from R4 to R6, and we're talking about first and second readings. Director of Development Services. Oh, motion, I'm sorry. Can I get a motion from the floor? Councillor Lavery, Councillor Flynn, now Director of Development Services.
Your worship, there's 2 zoning bylaw amendments proposed. The first is to rezone the 2 properties you mentioned from R4 medium density residential to R6 mobile home park zone. And the second zoning bylaw amendment is 2 text changes to the R6 zone. One is to allow for a reduction of the minimum lot size from 2 hectares to 1 hectare. And the other is to allow for an increase in density from 17 dwelling units per hectare up to a maximum number that is consistent with the official community plan designation of the property. In this case, the property is designated medium density residential in the OCP. And it's zoned R4, medium density residential. And we talked a lot last Monday about what is being proposed here and what's being planned. There is a mobile home park plan in your report. And the applicant has worked probably since October on refining this plan several times to a point where it meets my satisfaction as a staff member. It shows Boulevard landscaping along a 45th Street connection, 8 trees, London plan trees. It shows the planting of over 10 maple trees along the Canoe Beach Drive frontage. If developed, the applicant will upgrade Canoe Beach Drive frontage to the full standard of the bylaw, but there is a variance request in a separate application to not have to upgrade Canoe Beach Drive from this portion where the hand is showing here up to the northwest corner of the property. That will all be explained in the variance application. The applicant is willing to dedicate all that's needed for 45th Street and construct it to the full local urban standard. And there's a number of variances to the mobile home park bylaw needed for this development plan to succeed. At this point, we're looking at the zoning change from R4 to R6 and the proposed text amendments.
Okay. Thanks. And the text amendments will be in the 9.7 for the for what we discussed in the next thing. But as a discussion, we'll be talking about it all here in a whole. Do you have a question, or do you want the applicant to? No, okay. Sure.
I'm going to pull the new councillor card here. I want you to just clarify for me that an approval of this motion today is not an approval of the project, it's an approval of moving it forward to the hearing, public hearing?
Yeah, I was going to get into that here in a sec. Okay. Any further questions? And maybe it's a good time to do that, is just to explain that this is our first and second readings. The public hearing and the public input portion will be happening when we go to a public hearing. There's been discussion at this table not to proceed with that public hearing portion until it coincides and we've received the variance application for that, so that everyone's aware of what's being asked for and requested for the variances to be waived. And that's at the point when, while we receive written submissions and phone calls and emails and everything up till now and throughout the whole period, that's when the public will have a chance to speak at the public hearing, which will be an evening session, likely here in council chambers. So any further clarification on that? Okay, thank you. So at this point, we'll invite the applicant to present or to speak. Start stating your name and address, please.
My name is Kerry. I'm from 240 24th Street Northeast.
Welcome to council.
Thanks. So I went over the formal presentation last week, but basically our goal with this rezoning application is just to bring some affordable options to the community. We feel that there just isn't anything out there for people that, you know, are on a lower budget or have a lower salary. What we find at our office is for example, last week I had a family come in. They've got 4 kids. They saw the plan because we've got it there on a billboard, and their eyes lit up just how close it was to Canoe Beach. They've got the school there, and they know the community well. And, you know, there's a lot of that out there. And for those people who are renting, and I don't know if this is the time to say this, but I see a lot of it. I see a lot of people who are living in fifth wheels who can afford this, but there's nowhere to put it. I see people who have black mold in the house they're renting, but they can't buy their own house because an entry house is $400,000. So this is an option for them. I had someone come in today who is an older lady. She just put her husband into care, and they live on 3 acres. She wants to downsize into something. She saw the plan, and she's like, yes, this is perfect. She actually came in looking for a park model, and I said, well, you couldn't put a park model on this, but you could put a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 924 square foot house for $125,000. She can afford more, but she doesn't want it. She's on 3 acres. She doesn't want the maintenance. So that's what we're trying to provide for the community.
Okay. Councillor Lindgren.
Thank you. Welcome to council.
Thanks.
I'm a bit torn about this one with the paying pad rent, and I'm wondering whether or not you've considered increasing the price somewhat, another $50,000. I'm not sure what the number would be, but so that people can own their land like they do in the other mobile home park in Canoe.
So the question is fee simple versus a pad rental, and if that's been considered.
that's a good question, and it has been considered. We just don't feel that the market's there. If you look at Carriage Lanes, they started that development, I think, 2012, and they had 30 lots, and they're asking $130,000 for those lots. By the time you put a house on there, it's going to be, you know, close to that 350 to 400,000 mark. That gets away from where we feel people need the affordable houses. We started our Lakeland development, which was 33 lots, 2 years after they started that, and the market, you know, we filled that in 3 years. So that's where the need is, we feel. And I don't, like, we wouldn't pursue doing this if it had to be fee simple, or if that was our only option. I just don't think there's a market for it.
I have one more question. So this is potentially putting a lot of kids into canoe. Has there been some consideration for whether or not North Canoe School has room for them?
No, to be honest, I hadn't considered that.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Lindgren. Councillor Flynn?
Thank you. And just, I know I was away last week, and the mayor and another councillor were away, and I know Mr. Tarno did a detailed presentation to the 4 people that were here. I don't want to ask him to repeat that presentation for me. I'm asking through you to staff, if we vote to move this forward with first and second reading to public hearing, will that be an opportunity, and will that be recommended that full presentation be done there?
I think I can direct to staff, but I think that would be an expectation for a public hearing, yeah.
If that's the case, I won't ask you to do it again. I think I will make my decision based on the research I've done and the minutes of the last meeting and all of that.
Okay.
Your worship, it's completely up to the applicant whether he wants to represent that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Flynn. And you're welcome if you wish to grab the clicker and go again if you want, but I think we're okay. Councillor Wallace-Richmond?
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, we've seen it before, but the audience is different every time. So I will ask you what I ask everyone who comes for zoning change. I think you know what the question is. Have you spoken to the neighbors?
Yes. I was out there Saturday for a few hours, and I knocked on every door that backs onto the property on 73rd, as well as the guy on Canoe Beach Drive on the corner there. And the response was positive. Actually, I should clarify, there was a couple houses on 73rd that one said beware a dog, and there was a couple that said no solicitors, so I didn't knock on those 3, but the rest I did knock on. The 2 on 45th Street, they were excited about the plan. What I heard most was people like the plan. They like the fact that it's going to be one level. They don't want something that's going to be multiple levels on that property, just because it's going to block the views that they do have. That was the one thing I heard most, but I didn't get one person that opposed the idea. Most were very well receptive of it. Yeah.
Okay. That's all. Councillor Flynn, question for the applicant?
Actually, it was more a comment for the applicant, not a question.
Okay, we're going to go through questions for the applicant, questions for staff, and then we'll get to comments if that's okay. Councillor Wallace-Richmond, do you have a question for staff? I do. Okay. Go ahead and press your button. There you go.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you to staff. In the mobile home park bylaw, so again, my understanding is if we kept it at R4, you could put double wide manufactured homes on the property and you could fit 55. Is that in the ballpark?
Your worship, the maximum density permitted. So the present zone is R4, and that allows 40 units per hectare.
Okay.
And the property both combined together is 3.5 hectares, so 120 units potentially. Whether that's feasible or not, that's another matter. When you have the road punched through, the setbacks and everything else, if you wanted to get a high density like 100 units, you would need a townhouse type development.
Right, okay. And you could do that with an R4, but
You could do that with the
Okay.
present zoning.
Okay, which is R4. Then if we were to move to an R6, is there any way to put covenants on things like landscaping, single wide versus double wide, sidewalks, that sort of thing? Like a landscape plan and a,
That would be a council's call on that, not mine.
okay,
I recommend what's being proposed fits the spirit of the mobile home park bylaw
I see, okay.
with variances granted.
Yes, all right, thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Flynn?
So just,
Carrie, maybe you can sit down.
yeah,
or
go
there's
ahead
no more
and if I
questions.
have
Thanks.
questions. More to
Call
staff.
you back up.
And reading the staff recommendation, it basically is to support, but to do everything together. Any variance permits along with the rezoning public hearing all in one, is that correct?
That's correct. And the status of the variance application is after several months, we actually have the variances pinned down. Like I said, there's been a lot of refinement to the site plan and confirmation needed. If you look at the mobile home park bylaw, it's fairly massive and there's a lot of sections to it. So basically I have to write up a report now to you.
Okay.
And I anticipate that will be ready for the March 11th council meeting. In which case the public hearing for this rezoning, if it's approved first and second today, would be on March 11th as well.
Okay, so as I understand it, the variances to the mobile home park plan are completely different than also financial variances, which there may be some to the engineering and public works portion. Is that correct?
It will be under the same variance application.
But they're two different variances.
Yes,
In
they're two,
essence,
Your Worship, they're two different bylaws.
two different.
The off-site servicing requirements are the subdivision and development servicing bylaw. And the applicant so far is aware of all the servicing requirements necessary for this development. And the applicant is proposing to do everything required, including constructing 45th Street. And he will be asking to waive the requirement to upgrade this portion of Canoe Beach Drive. So that's the servicing bylaw. And then the mobile home park bylaw variances have to do with the internal layout and setbacks and buffering and site coverage and that type of thing.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Anything further, Councillor Flynn?
Not at this point, I'll wait and hear others.
Councillor Lindgren?
Thank you. Councillor Wallace Richmond was asking about, under the current zoning, could we put double wides there? And that sounds like that's an acceptable use. Can it be on leased land like this mobile home park is proposing, or would that be similar to some of the other modulars in Canoe where people own the land under them?
Through staff?
Under the current R4 zoning, one could come up with a bare land strata subdivision, similar to the application we just looked at earlier on 10th Avenue Southeast. And double wide modular homes are permitted under R4, but not single wide.
Okay. And so those would be double wide fee simple. That wouldn't be that wouldn't be a double wide on a pad.
Double wide on a pad.
No, like so fee simple lots.
Bare land strata.
Bare land strata, it wouldn't,
Yes.
there'd be ownership of the strata. Okay.
Yeah.
Does that clarify your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship, but tough question for staff, but why aren't single wides allowed on R1 lots? Or R1s?
I'm guessing it goes back to the 1990s when this zoning bylaw that we have was put into effect, and there was a reason,
Okay.
and the reason was the council of that time didn't feel that single wide mobile homes should go within R1 or R4 zone properties or neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Councillor Lindgren?
I'm just wondering about the zoning of the modular home development, I guess it would be called, that exists in Canoe already, where people have modulars, some of them are 2-story, they have fairly big yards. What would the zoning of that neighborhood be?
Right in there,
I think it is there, yes.
R1, I believe.
It's on the map, it's ours.
Your worship, this whole neighborhood here is referred to as Lakeside Pines, and there's several phases to it. And a lot of the homes in here are double wide modular homes on R1 zoned property.
R1. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Any other comments? Councillor Lavery?
Yes, yes, thank you, Your Worship. And it goes back to Councillor Flynn's question about, we have a recommendation from staff about approving first and second readings and consideration being withheld until a date of potentially March 11th. Do we need to put those two criteria into the motion that's in front of us?
I'll direct that to the CAO.
Which ones were those again specifically?
The staff recommendation of, after first and second readings, hold third and public readings and potential third reading, public hearings and third readings until submission of a detailed landscaping plan and completion of the staff report for the variance application.
Yes, I think that amendment would be in order.
I would make that.
Okay, so moved. Seconded by Councillor Wallace Richmond. Okay, I think the amendment's pretty clear. Does anyone have any questions on the amendment, which would consolidate the hearings or public hearings all together in waiting for the variance application and report to come forward? Okay, seeing none, calling an amendment to the motion. All those in favor? And that's carried. So now the motion as amended, which is the motion as presented and the consolidated hearings. Any comments, Councillor Lavery, anything further?
I wasn't going to, but seeing how I got the opportunity, I certainly support this to move this process further. I do want to just point out, and I want to thank the applicants, those who have provided input already, and I know there's been vigorous community discussion going on, but for the respectful tone and sticking to the subject at hand and the dilemmas that are in front of us. I just wanted to recognize that at this stage. I certainly look forward to carrying on the same tone of this difficult discussion in front of us. So I just want to do a shout out to all those involved in the process so far, and would certainly like and expect the tone to go forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lavery. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship, to the gallery and staff. I wasn't, as I mentioned, at the planning meeting and missed the presentation and a lot of the discussion, but I do want to thank all of you who have already started the public input process. It was definitely fun reading while I was away for a short holiday. I heard you say that this may not go to public hearing. I would be extremely disappointed if it didn't. I think it's a valuable process for the community no matter what is decided. And I think this is just too important a piece of property to not have the discussion, both pro and con, in public, in the community, in a respectful manner. So I will vote to move it forward with the amendment. And I will be honest that if I feel like it's not going to move forward to allow that public discussion, I will bring a motion forward to defer it until the other two councillors are here, because I think it's an important enough discussion that all 7 of us should be involved, and the community should have their opportunity to, 1, get the facts, 2, understand the issue, and 3, provide their input, whether I agree with it or not. And again, the process has started. I just want to make it clear that the real process will start if we approve this for first and second reading and then have a public hearing. And I look forward to that process, again, in a respectful manner.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Councillor Wallace Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. I too would like to see it go to public hearing with the variances so that everybody is on the same page about what is being asked for. So today I will be voting in favor of first and second reading. And I too would like to comment on the respectful nature of the conversation, and I look forward to seeing it through to its end.
Thank you. Any further comments, Councillor? So this, what happens, and this is mostly for number 15s out there, is we go to first and second reading, and at this time we decide as a council if we want to go to public hearing or not. You didn't hear a lot of councillors saying, I really support this, or I really oppose this. This is the time when we say, do we want this to go forward so that the neighborhood and the community can have input? And we're talking about, zoning from R4 to R6, so the change. And so it will correspond with our official community plan. It'll correspond with the neighborhood plan and what the neighborhood wants. And so at the public hearing, the developer will get to present theirs. We'll see a full staff presentation. You guys are going to be in for a long night. And then the gallery is, at that time, the public is allowed, on top of sending us letters, but come down to the microphone and speak and present their points. And so this is an important hearing for Canoe. This is it's a large piece of land in downtown Canoe, if you can imagine such a thing. And, right? It is. It's on Main Street, just about. So so what we're gonna hear at that public hearing is what the community feels that it should be done. And that's where some of us will take direction on how we feel it should be zoned. And we go into every public hearing with an open mind and help that influence our decisions based on the facts that we know. So, Councillor Flynn, would you like to speak?
Just one quick comment.
Councillor Flynn.
Thank you for giving me a second opportunity to make a comment. Second on this, after those were questions. And I think this is really important, and the tone is really important. And I think the other thing to note is I think everybody's approach to this should be whether or not we feel it solves what was the biggest election issue in the province of BC, or has a potential solution to affordable or attainable housing. And I'm not saying it's the right solution, but I think we all need to realize that the number one issue in our campaign in Salmon Arm was that, and the number one issue in the province was that, and the question really is, does this help us improve that in our community? And I think that's going to be a really interesting discussion, not quite as controversial as smart centers, but perhaps as vibrant.
Yeah, the question is whether or not we want to change the zoning.
Yep, no, I know.
And so that is the question, is, and what that entails and what that can provide. So that is the true question. So to move it forward to the public hearing, I will ask for a vote. All those in favor? So that is carried forward to public hearing. I don't have to vote. There's even if I voted, it would have been for whatever. Okay, so excellent. Okay, so 9.7 is the exact same thing that we just dealt with as far as the property and everything. It's just the text amendment. So 9.7, City of Salmon Arm Zoning Amendment Bylaw 4310, a text amendment. First and second readings. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Lindgren, Councillor Wallace Richmond. Director of Development Services, you outlined this in your report. Do you care to add anything to it?
Only, Your Worship, that moving the previous bylaw forward without moving this forward will kill the whole project. So it's important that this move forward to public hearing as well.
Everyone's vote counts, not just this time, every time. So not seeing any speakers, I will call the question. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried forward as well. Perfect. Takes us to 9.1, or 10.1, City of Salmon Arm Fee for Service Amendment, Water Meter Rates, number 4305, final reading. As this is the final reading, we will turn it over to the CAO for our mover and seconder.
Moved by Councillor Flynn, seconded by Councillor Wallace Richmond, that the bylaw entitled Fee for Service Amendment bylaw number 4305 be read a final time.
Okay. Any discussion? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. 10.2, City of Salmon Arm Zoning Amendment Bylaw 4300, Zone 1135. Jeff Stacer, 661 21st Street Northeast, R4 to R8, final reading. Motion from CAO.
Moved by Council Lindgren, seconded by Council Wallace Richmond, that the bylaw entitled zoning amendment bylaw number 4300 be read a final time.
Seeing it says fourth reading, call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. 11.1, correspondence. Already. Number 15. Number 15. Does anyone want to talk about anything? I don't see any that need any motions or anything moving other than a couple salty dogs. So, Councillor Flynn,
I would
You're up.
like to move the salty dog.
which is number 8, a motion from Councillor Flynn, seconded by Councillor Lindgren, that they direct staff to work with the Salty Dog to Street Fest to make it happen. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Anything else, Councillor Flynn? Building staff?
Yeah, number 1.
Number 1,
Since you're sitting there and not over here,
that's right.
I'll take this on, and the mayor is not here, and he quite often takes this on, but it appears that we're off to an okay start. I don't know what Kevin's doing in his spare time, but I'm guessing he doesn't have a lot of it. But we just had a record year and then a really slow January.
Big project commercial, right?
I know, but great news and continued good work, and thanks to staff and all the people that are investing in our community. Things are happening.
Any other items, Councillor Flynn?
No thanks.
Councillor Wallace Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. Item 3,
Item 3.
about, I believe the letter writer is in the gallery, is that right? I think. Is the letter writer sitting in the gallery? Yeah, okay. Oh, the tour bus parking letter? Yes. Through you, Your Worship, to staff, would we be able to send this to the safety committee? Okay.
Okay.
So the city has a safety committee, and the letter will go to the safety committee for consideration, and then there'll be a report back, at which time you, if I understand correctly through you, the letter writer would be told what the outcome was. Yes. Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Do you guys understand? Okay, thank you very much. Anything further from council? Councillor Lindgren?
Item number 4.
Item 4.
Could I just inquire as to what we use for plastic doggy bags now and whether or not it's feasible, or how do we find out if it's feasible to move to these plant-based plastic bags, non-plastic plastic bags?
Yeah, the ones we use are biodegradable already.
Yeah, I think she
plant-based.
asks about that in the letter, saying that the ones that we're using are not fast-moving or compostable. Is that correct?
Okay, I'm gonna ask the Director of Engineering and Public Works to talk about our doggy doo-doo bags.
So the current bags that we have in our stations are biodegradable, and they're made of recycled material. And so what the letter is referring to is compostable bags. And so there's not very many suppliers out there that make the compostable bags as of yet. So we have contacted 2 of them, and they are fairly similar in price, but what we found out right now is that in order to go in that direction, we would have to replace all of our containers that we have in the parks now, and they're about $150 each. And I don't have a count on them as of yet, but we're still looking into it. So we'll probably provide some sort of a report to see how this is going to move forward.
Thanks. I'm just wondering if you could clarify the difference between biodegradable and compostable for those people that don't know.
So biodegradable is basically the bag breaks down in the landfill, and compostable means that it can go to a processing facility and actually be turned into compost. The biodegradable bags are not compostable. So there's 2 different things. One works great at the landfill, and one works really good in compost. And we're still determining in our program, in our food waste program, if we can allow dog waste into the food waste containers, or if our processing facility will actually take dog waste as well. So we haven't determined that yet.
So would it be acceptable for the compostable bags to still end up in the garbage and end up at the landfill? That wouldn't be a negative, but it would be negative for them to go the other way, I assume.
Yes, we don't want the biodegradable bags. If we get approval to take them into the compostable facility, then we don't want the biodegradable bags to go there. And either way, if it goes to the landfill, it still breaks down. Biodegradable takes about 3 years to break down, as opposed to compostable will go fairly quickly in a few weeks.
Thank you.
Well, I wanted to thank Councillor Lindgren for asking those questions, because I was afraid to talk that much about the issue. But that being said, clearly my feeling is if we're not going to be putting dog waste or animal waste into the compost, I wouldn't bother with the compostable bags, clearly. Doesn't make sense. But my other question, or just direction to staff, is I've had numerous people, and I've been in other communities where the opportunity for advertising on pet bags and on the dispensers is available, and therefore there's very little cost to taxpayers, and usually, shockingly, it's pet stores or vets and things like that. Have we looked at that option?
We've had some discussion with some other communities. The issue is that the bags that we're getting from these suppliers have all of the information on them already.
Okay.
So it'd be very difficult to have them printed out.
Okay.
And I think it might be more costly to do that, but it is an option at some point. If you recall, one point we were looking at trying to go away with the dog bags completely, because it's costing us roughly $17,000 to $20,000 a year, depending on the season, plus the labor to stock them. So it's a fairly large cost, and yet we still find in our parks a lot of dog feces.
Yeah, but
that
we're
are
going
not
to
in
charge more
bags.
for that now. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Flynn. Just to the Chief Financial Officer, the letter number 7 about the Crime Stoppers, that was something that we declined at our budget, and there's an action requested that we fund that still. What's your recommendation on the Crime Stopper signage funding? Yeah, right?
I think what they're requesting is that they would like to seek other sources of funding, but that they'd like our support for installation areas. So it wouldn't, from my understanding, be a funding perspective from the city, more or less our support on areas that they could put signs up should they seek other funding sources.
Okay. And
Your Worship, we've actually been in discussion with Crime Stoppers for the last year, and we've got 2 locations that we could put the signs, one at each end of the city. They're fairly nice looking signs. I think you reviewed them at budget. So my recommendation would be to have council support that request, and that they could look for other funding from other organizations.
okay, so I'd be looking for a motion here from council to support the placement of the Crime Stopper signs at staff's discretionary locations, and that Crime Stopper fund those signs on their own. So would there be a mover for that? Councillor Flynn? Councillor Lavery? Any discussion about allowing Crime Stopper signs? Councillor Wallace Richmond?
Thanks, Your Worship. While this is the intention is great, I remind council that we've gone through a branding process, and there'll be many conversations about signage happening all over the city. I would really like to see this fit into a wider strategy about signing the community, and not just putting signs up randomly that isn't part of a wayfinding strategy for the city. So I won't be supporting this.
Fair. Thank you. Councillor Flynn?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I move this for discussion purposes.
Perfect.
I am similar thinking to Councillor Wallace Richmond, as I'd like to see what is going to be happening with money being spent by MRDT funds and the tourism industry and all of those things before we haphazardly approve signs. And I think the best line was, when this first came up in the budget process, is that criminals don't read signs, and I'm not sure that this does any good. But I do see these signs all over the valley. I would just like to wait and see if it's part of an overall strategy.
Okay. The message I'm hearing here is that we would wait for this. Councillor Lindgren?
Yeah, like Councillor Flynn said, I don't see that this is going to benefit us in any way. If people are interested in finding out how to get a hold of Crime Stoppers, it's only a click away on your phone. This doesn't offer anything to the community in my view, and I wouldn't support it.
Okay, so I will call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? That is defeated. Okay, any further speakers on the correspondence? If not, we will move on to my favorite number, 15. Number 15 on the agenda, number 1 in your heart. The Salmon Arm Secondary Youth Council and their presentation. Welcome to council. I bet you guys didn't think you'd see me here, hey?
Literally.
Okay. So name and address. Okay. Welcome. My name is Zachary Nath. Address is 7050 70th Street Northeast. So over the next few months, our Salmon Arm Youth Council will be shadowing the councilors in City Council. So, shadowing the mayor, Alan Harrison, will be myself and Ben. Shadowing Councilor Chad Eliason will be Jonah and Griffin. Shadowing Councilor Kevin Flynn will be Gray and Luke. Shadowing Sylvia Lindgren will be Emma. Shadowing Tim Lavery will be Richard. Shadowing Louise Wallace Richmond will be Blanca. Shadowing Debbie Cannon will be Sarah. And those are that's the shadowing schedule. Also, Salmon Arm Youth Council has heard about the recent rezoning for the developments in Canoe. We are interested in the dialogue that will be taking place and are excited to see what comes of it.
Hi, I'm Griffin. I live in Blind Bay on Lakeview Drive. And I just want to tell you guys that our school will be contacting City Hall to request guest speakers to speak to 4 of our social studies classes about topics within the city. And those speakers will be either staff or politicians. And sometime during March and April, our class will be presenting to the school board to request an item on their agenda. This spot would allow this on the school board agenda would allow us to create a separate student school board council.
Nice. Anything further?
Right, no, that is it, Your Worship.
Okay, well, Zachary and Griffin, thank you very much for your presentations today. That's excellent. Yeah, no. Anyone else? Okay.
Just a quick follow-up. The 2 counselors that sit on the CSRD,
Yeah.
you are having 4 students that are in that area, so they don't live in Salmon Arm. So that's.
I feel no pressure.
Okay.
How about,
just to let you know.
how about you, Councillor Flynn?
No, I was wondering why I had 2 with me, and if that's because, and you know, I think that's great, because I feel that we don't work enough regionally, personally. I've been saying that since I've been at this table. And I actually have some specific questions that I want your group to work on moving forward in light of the open house yesterday for a new pool and rec facility and all of those things. So I'm going to sit down with you guys before the end of today and give you some homework. Yes, I never get to do that.
Yeah,
They're looking forward to going to CSRD meetings as well. So.
Okay, good.
It never pains me as much as it does Councillor Flynn to do this, but that's a great idea. And so, first, I'd like to welcome you guys to our meeting. It's good to have you back and have you here. Just a quick question for staff, do we send them, like, they're interested in the canoe development that we talked about today? Will they receive the letters that we receive, like the council information letters prior to the meeting?
They'll receive the council agenda.
The agenda and the correspondence as well,
Yes.
included in that? Okay, thanks. Yeah, you guys are gonna see your first big public hearing. And it'll be exciting. I'll be able to sit over there for it, but it's good. I think that's it. So what we will do now, unless I see anyone with any other business or any other questions or discussion, we will recess until 4 o'clock when we have the RCMP presentation, and then 4:15 we have the Trail Alliance presentation. So not seeing anything else, we'll recess until 4 o'clock.
What, sorry?
I was just gonna ask about council statements.
Oh, yeah, let's do council statements now. Moving on up. Nobody wants to do a council statement now? Okay, seeing none, recess till 4 o'clock. That's right.
Yeah, they'll. At 4 o'clock. No.